Hello my fellow gamers and welcome once again to Perafilozof videos. Today I'm going to show you the current meta for fighting in the ranked battles in Total War 3 Kingdoms. With the romance mode being the default mode, the heroes or the generals, however you wanna call them, are the main thing. Having them in a battle survive, it's going to allow you pretty much 99% of the time to win the battle, and losing them is going to mean 99% of the time that you're going to lose the battle. So basically the most important thing is for your generals to stay alive. And you do this by having duelists who are very durable. They do not die to enemy infantry, even though maybe they should. They do not die to enemy generals unless those generals are exactly the same. And the top duelist general, and currently the highest survivability rate, is with Xu Chu. The best part is you can copy him. You can take 2, even 3 of them. But it is also a good idea to take with the 2 Xu Chus a Sima Yi, a strategist who is going to debuff the enemy's cooldowns and not allow them to use their abilities. This of course requires you to keep your strategist alive, which means one duelist is going to be his bodyguard, while the other duelist is going to have a mission to destroy the enemy's Sima Yi or another strategist that they might use. It is very important to level them up to level 3 so that they have access to their most powerful abilities and that they have their maximum stats. When it comes to the units that you actually bring to the battle, it isn't really important that much. All you need is units that are going to be able to survive in the melee mode long enough for you to actually kill the enemy's general. You can take some archers, you can take some cavalry just to pretend that you are actually fighting a battle, but the most important thing is to just kill the enemy's generals and keep your generals alive by using your own generals. The infantry, the cavalry, the archers, the crossbowmen are just for show. Now let's see how that actually works out in a battle. I'm probably going to face pretty much the same setup in the enemy, and you'll see that pretty much everybody plays this meta, and everybody who has figured out how powerful this meta is, that is. Like I said, units don't matter much, but for the simplicity's sake, crossbowmen on the front, infantry in the back, cavalry on the flanks, and if you have any spearmen or extra melee units, put them on the flanks or behind so you can keep your back from the enemy cavalry protected, or use your extra infantry to envelop the enemy if he has fewer infantry units. So without further ado, let's jump into this. From the get-go you can see that the enemy general has the same idea and uses the same meta, which is pretty much what you can expect. 2 duelists, only this time he's not using the same duelist like I'm using, he's using one the same and one different, but as you can see, you can copy paste your duelists, so no need to use different duelists. He also has a strategist who's going to block my abilities, I have a strategist who's going to block his abilities, and we are just going to proceed to duke it out with our duelists, trying to keep our strategist alive. In one of the more unorthodox ways to fight this battle out, my enemy has chosen to set up a box formation with some archers in the middle, spears and sword units on his flanks and backs and forwards. Well, it's a box, so everywhere you have spears and swords sticking out, and his generals are in the middle. But I do have plenty of infantry to envelop him, and I do have some cavalry to storm in that box. With his units in their special formations, they're going to be tougher to shoot at, but the sword unit is out of formation and it's going to be easier to shoot at them and take out more of them, not wasting crossbow bolts. The key to survivability of Xu Chu is their defensive aura that reduces their damage taken by 50%. And with the general protecting you from the enemy's abilities, this means that these 2 generals can last a very long time in a melee, and they are able to even destroy enemy units, even though this is what the vanguards should be doing and not the duelists. As my infantry gets closer in, I am going to order the first units to attack the front ranks, while I'm going to have my flanks envelop him and try to make a hole for the cavalry to get into, to destroy those archers of course, and do some hammer and anvil attacks on the infantry's front ranks. As he doesn't use his generals, his duelists, to attack my strategist, I'm just going to order my duelist to take out his duelists and then to be able to clean up. This isn't actually the best use of your duelists. Maybe you should keep one to defend your strategist if you see the enemy is holding back his duelists, and use one of your duelists to scare off his strategist. Even if your duelist is fighting 2 versus 1, he will still be able to take enough to do enough damage to the enemy strategist to force him off the battlefield. The sustained fire from 4 crossbow units has managed to rout those sword units, and now I have a clear way to send my cavalry in and to attack these crossbowmen protected by the box. As long as both of our strategists are alive and on the battlefield, they're gonna keep the enemy's duelists from using their most powerful abilities. Those are their melee abilities that they can inflict a lot of damage with. They also have cooldowns, and some of them are only single use. Now, if you rout the enemy strategist, you will still be unable to use those abilities until he actually leaves the battlefield. So it's actually better to just kill him straight up, and that way you can unlock a usage of your abilities for your duelists. You will not want to take up any duel offers, because you want your duelist free to attack the enemy strategist. By entering a duel, you would be tying up your duelist in a duel just against one general, when you could be killing other infantry, you could be taking out the other general's health, and you're risking your own general. As you saw right there, my duelist was able to chase off the enemy strategist. The problem with chasing off is that the aura that's preventing my generals from using their abilities is going to stick around, because the enemy strategist, hasn't been killed but just chased off. The problem with my duelist chasing after the enemy strategist and he's not defending him is that then my duelist, who is going to end up alone against 2 enemy duelists, and you can see that his health is already put down quite a lot. This means that I'm easily going to lose one duelist, but I was able to chase away the enemy strategist, which will later on be able to allow me to use my abilities on my generals, and the enemy will still be unable to, because he hasn't chased off or killed my strategist, while the enemy strategist has escaped, and I will be able to use the most powerful abilities on my generals. You can see by the fact that the enemy general hasn't used his infantry well, the back units and the flank units barely moved at all, because he was too busy micromanaging the the generals who are duelists, to try and kill off my duelists and then be able to chase off my army after my heroes are killed or routed. This leads to pretty much uninteresting battles, because if everything is about just generals, then why do we even have armies? And this is a perfect example of a player who doesn't even care about his units. That's why he set them up in such a formation where I have to attack them, and he doesn't pretty much have to do anything, just have them sit there and absorb my attacks. This is one of the reasons, well, it's probably the main reason why the romance mode shouldn't really be the default ranked multiplayer battle mode, because what's the point of a total war if you're just playing with 3 heroes and the units are pretty much non-important? The point of a total war game is to have your general, but also to have your armies, to use your cavalry, bows and infantry well, and to have cool battles. These battles, they're not cool, they're just gimmicks. As for the units themselves, the Protectors of Heaven are very expensive units, but they also hold up for a very long time in prolonged melee, even against several units of enemy infantry or cavalry, and because they use the Polarime, the glaive weapon, they can defend against cavalry as well as infantry. As the enemy strategist is finally off the field, I can now use my abilities, and I first use it with my own strategist to reduce the enemy's melee defenses and armor, and then I use the ability on my duelists to quickly do a lot of damage to the enemy duelists. They cannot use their abilities because my strategist is still alive and on the field. As for using a bowman, that's the archers, and the crossbowmen, you pretty much never want to actually use the skirmish ability, because every time an enemy unit even gets close to them, not even attacking them, they're going to move and not be able to fire. And for example, if an enemy general jumps into your formation like his general did into mine, it's enough for me to just choose one of those units that is being attacked by the enemy general, turn it into a melee mode and attack the general just to keep him busy, while the other 3 or 4 units, how many other units you have of bow or crossbowmen, can keep shooting, because an enemy general takes a long time to kill an entire unit that has full 120 men. So even with 10 or 20 or 30% of your archers not shooting, it's fine, because you want to have those other archers keep shooting. You should never underestimate the usefulness of a crossbowman and a bows that use up their arrows, because you can use them to back attack enemy units, flank them, or just keep enemy horses from chasing into your back formation of infantry and doing hammer and anvil attacks, or just keeping enemy generals busy. At this point in the battle, the enemy general has finally chased off my strategist, and because he's an easy target, he could have done this at any point, but it seems that he chose just to duel and keep fighting with the duelist instead of attacking the strategist, who was actually keeping him from using the main abilities on his duelists. But this was also the last thing the enemy duelist was able to do before my remaining duelist was able to kill him. This is of course thanks to my duelist being able to use his abilities and inflict more damage. Now that all enemy generals are either fled or dead, this reduces the morale of enemy units, who now just need to be holed up in the front, shot if I have any crossbowmen with their ammo left, and then of course slam them with a general in the back or another unit in the back. Even knowing what the meta is and how you have to use your duelists much better to inflict more damage, I wasn't too keen on just micromanaging my duelists and generals as you saw during the battle. It's because I just simply cannot accept a battle in Total War being just the point of right-clicking with your general, attacking the enemy generals and fighting it out, and as soon as you kill the enemy generals you probably win the battle 99% of the time. So it's kind of hard for me to mentally just force myself in a gameplay like that. I am trying to explain this meta to everybody who wants to play, because unless you play this way at the moment, you're most likely going to lose any battle in the ranked multiplayer. For those who are okay with this kind of gameplay, at least now you know how to be relevant and have a chance at the ranked multiplayer. And for those who do not like this gameplay, all I can say is I don't like it either, and we have to post something about this on the official forums and have the developers listen that we want the records mode to be the default ranked mode and not the romance mode. And that is because Total War games were always much more than just channel battles and duels. This is okay if you're playing the game that's 3 kingdoms in single player, maybe you just like the romance mode and having the generals be everything in a battle, but for real multiplayer fans who like multiplayer to be an all-around battle between 2 armies, this really doesn't cut it. I am honestly hoping that there are developers at Creative Assembly who have a wish for the multiplayer community to have fun playing this game, because there's not going to be a large percentage of players who are going to find this fun for a very long time, especially if you're down to using just a single general whose abilities and stats make it so overpowered that there is no point in using any other general, and especially the duelist type is something that is forced on players right now if they even want to play competitively. The real core of multiplayer players who have played Total War games and their multiplayer for decades now that this franchise has existed have always been very vocal and have tried to make sure that the developers know what is the best course of action when it comes to multiplayer balance. I very hope that this time, as well as every other time before, they are going to be able to share their experiences and their advice with the Creative Assembly, and that somebody at Creative Assembly cares enough about multiplayer that they are going to listen to that advice. Because the gameplay at the moment like this is, like I said before, just a gimmick. If your soldiers don't really matter and all that matters is the generals, and in that regard all that matters are the duelists, that pretty much cuts down the gameplay to maybe 5% of its point, and that's gonna get old very quickly, and players are gonna stop playing the multiplayer aspect of this game very quickly. I hope that the developers of Creative Assembly are already aware of this, but just in case, I hope that everybody else is gonna talk about this and write about this on the official forums, as well as the other unofficial places where the developers might listen. That'll be all for me in this video. Thank you all for watching, and please stay tuned for more videos.